90-day priorities start to get at the heart of execution. Up until this point, we've been talking about planning, and today we're moving into the actual part that makes the difference. 90-day priorities are a core part of Axiom's system. And if you're really interested in a deep dive on 90-day priorities, I highly recommend the book Measure What Matters by John Doerr. Now, I'll say that just like a lot of the tools that we use, when you look at this particular tool, if you look at Measure What Matters, it's a framework all in itself. This is used by a lot of technology companies. It became really popular in the 90s and the early aughts. It's been around for a long time. It's also called Objectives and Key Results. And it's kind of based, it's suited it's suited for like fast-paced industries. That's why it's very popular in the tech industry. But 90-day priorities have become a core part of what we do. But you'll notice in what I'm going to lay out, and certainly if you work with Axiom, there's a lot of differences between how we do it and what is in that book or what is pure OKRs. Because we have found by throwing stuff up against the wall with small business owners over 20 years, what actually works and what doesn't. So this is what we have found that works very well. So I just want to go back and explain this hierarchy. So we have at the very top the things that don't change: values, vision, why, mission. Now, as we said, with vision, you could get to a point where you reset the vision. You've achieved the vision and you're moving on to the next over the horizon destination that you and your team are trying to take on. But vision is fairly permanent. It might change every 5, 10, 15, 20 years. Your purpose statement, your why. Why is that vision worth everyone's best effort? Your mission, which is summarizing those three legs of the stool of values, vision, and why. And then we talked about strategy. What are we going to constrain our focus to for the next 2 to 3 years? And then we've talked about WIGs. What's the wildly important goal that you and your team are trying to achieve this year that will indicate you've made significant progress on that strategy? And now we get into 90-day priorities. So I want you to see how all of this fits together as one cohesive system. So when we talk about 90-day priorities, don't make it any harder than it needs to be. It's just that. What is your focus, your individual focus for the next 90 days? We do this a few different ways depending on the type of team that we're working with and how mature, if you will, they are in the process. A lot of times we start off and the entire leadership team will share a 90-day priority or a set of 90-day priorities. But as we get bigger into large organizations with people who have more leadership experience and they're responsible for a much broader scope of work kind of within a department or within a division, it's important that they have their own individual 90-day priorities. So that's what I'm going to talk about today is what is a good individual 90-day priority. Well, number one, it contributes to the WIG. That's the whole purpose of this being part of a system. If it's not contributing to the WIG, then it's not in alignment with the broader strategic plan. It has hard edges. It can be done at the end of the 90 days. We're going to be able to say it was accomplished or it wasn't accomplished. It was done or it wasn't done. Things like get better at something or work on, those are not good 90-day priorities because we're not going to know at the end whether we can move on to the next 90-day priority or not. Is that thing making a substantive difference in our movement toward the WIG? It's not in your whirlwind. The whirlwind is one of those phrases that we got from a book called The 4 Disciplines of Execution, which I think I've talked about already. But, and that's also where the WIG comes from. The whirlwind is your day job. That's the stuff that you have to do anyway. And the example that I've used before with clients is if you're the sales manager getting ready for the trade show that's coming up next quarter, that's not a good 90-day priority. You're going to have to do that anyway. That's part of your job. What we're looking for is something that is going to move us toward the WIG, that is something that you're primarily responsible for and is not part of your day job. And then finally, it's yours. It's not your boss's. If you don't care about this, it's not going to get done. And we've learned the hard way that when a boss just hands somebody a 90-day priority, if they're not fully bought into what that means, not just for the company, but what that means for them, how it affects their professional development, how it gets them toward their personal goals, then it's just not going to get done. And I've seen that too many times to count. When we get into the 90-day priority, it is all of these things, right? It contributes to the WIG, hard edges. It's not part of your whirlwind. It's something that you believe in. But that's a statement or a goal that you're trying to achieve over the next 90 days. And we have to break that down. Again, learn the hard way what happens when you don't break it down. And I'll stop and say this is a big difference between the way Axiom does it and the way another very popular platform, EOS Traction, does it. Traction has big rocks, which are kind of analogous to 90-day priorities. And when you report on the big rocks, you're simply reporting to the team, is it on track, off track, behind, how am I doing on this? It's a very subjective measurement. What we do is break it down into weekly dominoes. And the reason that we use the dominoes analogy is because when you do the first one, then you're in a good spot to do the second one, do the third one. So you can think about these successive tasks or these little mini projects that have to happen each week in order for you to move toward accomplishment of that 90-day priority. And then we track that every single week. We use a spreadsheet a lot of the times, or we use the app that we have with our clients, where we break down those 90-day priorities on the entire team, and we say, what are your weekly dominoes? And when you're setting up your dominoes, if a quarter is 13 weeks, you're probably going to set 9 or 10 dominoes, accounting for things like your vacation time or big deadlines or something that's just going to take you out of being able to significantly move that priority forward that week. I think 9 to 10 is a great number to shoot for. And then we have the clients come in to the spreadsheet or to the tool that we use and put target dates for their completion. And then every week we can see this is black, this was the target date for this to be completed. And we have some color-coded grades here in terms of it's getting worse, it's getting better, it's on track, it's off track, it's completed. This is what creates the culture of accountability to execution on a strategic plan. And you can talk to any of our advisors and they'll tell you the teams that are staying on top of their 90-day priorities are getting results. They're getting financial results, they're getting strategic results, they're also getting better leadership team results because that leadership team is holding people accountable to doing the work. I'll say finally, the last thing I'll say about this is what we're looking for is 2 to 3 hours a week when you can close your door, we call it closed door time, and you can go head down on the domino for that week. That's what really moves execution.